Well, condolences continue to pour in for former President F.W. de Klerk, who died in Cape Town yesterday. But many are also critical of the former president for not coming clean on apartheid atrocities. The 85-year-old died peacefully at his home in Fresnay after a battle with cancer. Father Michael Lapsley says de Klerk did not take responsibility for his role in apartheid. Lapsley is the president of the Healing of Memories Global Network.
My sadness, in a way, is that FW was never able to say, I mean, he's recently said, I'm sorry, but was never able to face his complicity with evil and the kind of pain and suffering of millions and millions of people over so many years. And I think we see that particularly in terms of his role in relation to the death squads. What came to my mind immediately as well was the Craddock Four, where de Klerk was president of the State Security Council. And there's never been, at the time when the decision was made, essentially to murder the Craddock Four. And also, Van Zyl Slabbert years ago told me personally, he said, I went to de Klerk, I told him about the death squads, and he did nothing to disband them. So while he's sorry about, park benches and group areas, the death and the torture on his watch, there was never any taking of responsibility for that.
Well, in his final filmed words to the nation, former President F.W. de Klerk apologized for the pain and indignity that apartheid caused. But for the families of apartheid's countless victims, de Klerk missed an opportunity to grant them justice or at least some closure. Decades after negotiating the transition to democracy, de Klerk's alleged trove of secrets remained tightly guarded. Among those who were left shattered by the prospect that the truth may have gone to the grave is Imtiaz Kagee. He's the nephew of slain anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Timol. Thank you so much, Imtiaz, for joining us. Your response yesterday when you heard the news that the former president had died, and it was just shortly after you had sent a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yes, good morning, Annika. First and foremost, we send our condolences to the family of President F.W. de Klerk at the de Klerk Foundation and his support staff. But the reality, Annika, is that the issues that I've raised have been consistently covered in the public domain. And the crux of the issue is the press release that the de Klerk Foundation issued in June this year, Annika, where President de Klerk asked the NPA to halt the reopening of TRC cases as there was a settlement between both parties. And this is the letter that I sent to President Ramaphosa yesterday morning, asking him to put into context, to share in confidence with myself and the rest of the country, what was the settlement that President de Klerk was referring to? We know very well that President Ramaphosa, along with the likes of Roel Meyer and Neil Barnard, were part of the negotiation process. And on that particular basis, de Klerk issued this press release. So this was the context of the letter to President Ramaphosa, for him to come clean, to divulge the contents of the letter, to show us the settlement document, the signatories on the document, and to provide context to it. And the reality, Annika, is that if you look at the statements issued by the various foundations throughout the country, nobody refers to this issue of the settlement. And for myself and apartheid-era victims' families throughout the country, this is the heart of the issue. And we understand it's difficult times for the family, to endure the loss of a loved one. And we are not insensitive when we raise this particular issue, because this matter has been raised in the public domain on numerous occasions. And the reality is that the political powers in play today have continually remained silent on this matter. And hence, I once again reiterate this call for President Ramaphosa to share with myself and the country the secret settlement that President de Klerk was referring to.
Yeah, Imtiaz, I'm looking at the letter you sent to the president yesterday again, and it says that there was this informal agreement between the ANC leadership and former operatives of the pre-1994 government. It implies that there's some cover-up that is still going on. Why do you think that is? Why would the current dispensation still have an interest in protecting those who negotiated the so-called secret deal?
Well, I think for many of us, Annika, when we do the analysis of contemporary South African politics, many of it is directly linked to the tragic history of apartheid South Africa. And de Klerk's admission in the press release confirms our view that the secret trade-off has resulted in the lack of priority being allocated to the reinvestigation of TRC cases. So if you look in my uncle's matter, Annika, in the Ahmed Timol matter, João Rodrigues has passed on almost 3 years after his first criminal trial, after his criminal appearance on the 30th of July 2018, without him facing criminal charges. In the death of Dr. Neil Agate, Stephen Whitehead, the senior interrogator, had passed on before they announced the reopening of the Agate inquest. In the inquest of Dr. Hussein Haffajee, Andy Taylor had passed on, again, before they announced the reopening of the Haffajee inquest. And now in the Klerk 4 matter, the likes of Eric Taylor and President F.W. de Klerk, allegedly implicated in these matters, will not be held accountable. So I'm of the view that there's a clear pattern, there's a clear strategy on the part of the current administration to continue delaying these matters for as long as possible, to ensure that this negotiated settlement, the secret agreement, remains intact and remains in place, and hence the silence on the part of political parties on either side of the divide, which only confirms to us that there was this agreement, secrets that were shared between two parties, and at the end of the day, it is us as families that continue searching for the truth for our loved ones.
Where next for you and your family in the search for some kind of justice and closure? Does that really sit with the NPA now?
Well, I mean, in the Rodrigues matter, Rodrigues' legal counsel were granted leave to appeal at the Constitutional Court in Braamfontein. But just 2 days ago, the Constitutional Court responded to Mr. Ben Minar, the legal counsel of João Rodrigues. And my understanding was that they were simply saying that he does not have power of attorney over Rodrigues, because Rodrigues is now deceased. And obviously, the family will need to grant approval for his matter to be heard at the Constitutional Court. And this once again means that there will be lengthy delays, which inevitably will mean that families will continue sitting and waiting, and apartheid era perpetrators will continue waiting for this judgment to be announced by the Constitutional Court, hoping that this will protect them and defend them from further prosecutions.
Imtiaz, I know it was 50 years ago that your uncle was killed, but I still feel the need to send my condolences to you and your family because you've not received the closure that you so desperately want. Thank you so much for coming on air. That's Imtiaz Kagee, the nephew of anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Timol.